Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about, as well as the connected culture.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Leader in You podcast. We're so excited to be here. My name is Polina, and I'm here with my amazing mom, Dr. Lola Gershfeld. Welcome, everyone, to the show.
Thank you, Polina. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I want to thank everyone who is listening. We take the time to think about the topics, and we really care about our way of sharing the knowledge. And we really thank you so much for being part of our community.
Yes, we love this, and we just love bringing you information, knowledge, education on how to have close connected relationships at work and how to have relationships work for you. So we have a very interesting topic today. As usual, we have a weekly array of topics. In today's topic, we are talking about something called holding two truths. So Dr. Lowe is going to dive into that and tell us more, Mom.
Holding to truth. What does that even mean? I was thinking about our last conversation with Ryan, who he was talking about becoming better.
Yeah.
Right, becoming better. And he talked about the horizontal skills and then vertical skills. And in vertical skills, he talked about the emotional attunement, emotional awareness, emotional management. All of that is vertical skills. And often leaders, when they have to deal with conflicts or they trying to help team members to work better together, they get stuck figuring out who is right, who is right in this argument. And often people get into an argument because they feel so disconnected with each other. They feel not heard, they feel not valued, they feel like the other person doesn't care about them, and they miss each other in those moments. So when we talk about holding two truths together, we are talking about for leaders to learn how to use the attachment framework and holding those two experiences together, right? So they can listen to one person and validate their experience, and then they can listen to the other person and also validate their experience. So both people have their own truth of what is happening with them.
Yes, I think that's great. I love that. And I think it goes back to what you said, like not pointing to the bad guy. We just talked about this on the live stream. It's like when conflicts occur, we're so used to pointing to other people and blaming other people and trying to save face or protect ourselves and our reputation and trying to really make sure the connection isn't lost or affected, and we don't always see it in that light, but underneath we want that. But then we don't realize that in every conflict it takes two people to have that conflict and that disconnection. I tell my team, in every single situation there's going to be both different experiences. And I say perspective. I think you say like emotional experience, right? And I notice in conflicts, like one person will say, like, no, that's not what happened. Or no, that's not actually what was true. And I think we miss the fact that each person's experience is true for them. And we have to
Exactly.
like meet them there in that their truth and
Yes.
trying to change the truth according to how we experienced it.
Yes, and that's the whole point. I think sometimes that's where I think managers and leaders get off because they do not necessarily know how to hold that truth together, how to help people to stay balanced and keep their own balance because they are arguing in between. What I love about when we learn how to actually say, like you can be sad, mad, excited, and
Mhm.
angry, confused at the same time, where you can validate those feelings. It doesn't mean that you're invalidating the other person. And then you don't have to defend your position. You can be your own person and with your own experience, sad, mad, confused, angry, in your own state, in your own.
Definitely. When you started developing the EMC process, what was your initial kind of perspective originally before learning this?
Well, the my perspective was I have to convince the other person to see my side,
Yeah.
right? Because if I don't convince them, so you have to negotiate, right? You have to try to see their own side. But what happened is when we talk about our own side, we mostly talk about content, like trying to convince the other person to agree. But what it's all driven by emotions. So when I started to develop and I started to see that emotions actually drive our behavior, drive our actions, drive our thought process, whether to be flexible or rigid in our own view, it helped me to understand that emotional processing, emotional organization, learning how to stay focused on emotion is the key to get the conflict out of the relationship, to get out of conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If what is like a method of how we can hold the two truths in a situation?
Well, number one, not to take sides.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as you start to notice yourself taking either person's side, you're already losing that balance. So almost like invalidating the other person. And
Mm-hmm.
that's very difficult for people to do if they are not using the process, like the form that we were using it today at a live stream on LinkedIn. We were talking about a situation. And when we use the form, it actually helps us to really focus on that experience because
Mm-hmm.
that experience is true for that person.
Right. Exactly.
When people don't use the form and cannot really stay in that step by step process, the brain will easily get out of emotion and start to thinking about the story, like to
Mm-hmm.
make logical sense. But sometimes what people experience is you don't have to really agree with them, but you accept their experience. And that's extremely important.
So how would you recommend someone do that if the other person doesn't believe those same things, right? Like we believe it and we know it's backed by science and how our brain works. But let's say you do have someone in the workplace that is like learned this process and wants to take this perspective of meeting people where they are and having these two truths, but the other person is like so focused on blaming and making sure that to point out that it's not their fault or that sort of thing. So, like, what would you recommend, or how would you go about it if you had a situation where, yeah, you have these two people in a conflict and one person is listening to this and saying, like, okay, I want to do the two truths, and every person has perspective, but the other person doesn't.
Well, we recognize that when people blame or lecture or defend, they are using ineffective strategies to try to be heard, try to see their point of view. It's
Mm,
like if they keep blaming, if they keep going into that protective behavior, that means we have not seen their pain yet,
mm-hmm.
that we have not seen their dilemma. This is what we call attachment dilemma. Attachment dilemma is when people, when they feel disconnected, they go into that protective mode automatically. And if we don't recognize how desperate they are to get that connection back, we don't see their pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order for managers and leaders to learn how to still hold the balance, to learn how to hold two truths together, is they have to recognize, oh, I hear blame. They're using the protective behavior. That means they feel scared. They feel alone. They feel somehow desperate trying to get that connection back. So what I would do is I would validate them more
Mm-hmm.
to them, right? I get it. I hear how difficult that is for you. You're not alone. I'm right here with you. I see how painful that is for you, how scary it is for you, how disappointed you are. I see how angry you might feel about it. You're not alone. I'm right here with you.
Yeah.
By me validating their experience, what I'm really doing is I'm actually helping them to de-escalate. I'm giving them the message. I care about you. I care about your experience. I care about your emotions, your feelings, your hurt, your pain. I care about how difficult that was for you. And when I get that message that I care about you, you're important to me, the other person starts to de-escalate.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do it in a way so they can catch it. They can catch our intent to help them. They can catch and be in that moment hearing us saying, this person really cares about me.
Yeah. Do you feel like seeing these two truths, it takes people out of, because I hear a lot too about like victimhood, and people kind of stay in this victim experience. If they talk about their feelings or they want people to feel they're not necessarily sorry for them, but they feel their sadness and stuff, then people can view them as like always being the victim. So do you feel, how does that relate to like, how can you move from being a victim to empowerment through the process of like seeing both sides as truth?
If you go back and think about why do people say, oh, you're just victim or they are victim, that means
Yeah.
whoever is saying, oh, they're just using the victim mode, that means
Mm-hmm.
they are using ineffective strategies, right? They are blocked. They cannot really empathize with the other person because they're still in pain.
Mm-hmm.
That means that they're being judged or they feel blamed somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So they use protective behavior to defend themselves, and then they judge the other person, saying, "Oh, they just playing victim."
Mm-hmm.
So we always go back to the attachment framework and say when people work together, they want to be connected. They long for that connection because it's part of
Yeah.
their survival need. When they use these strategies, we recognize it and right away recognize that there's a still disconnection happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we have not heard their truth, their experience, what
Mm-hmm.
they have felt.
Or maybe we haven't also seen it in their, because I think too, if people, they want to be heard, they want to be able to have their truth heard, and yet they don't necessarily have all the tools to express it in a way where they feel understood. It's like, let's say they have the conversation, they want their truth to be heard, but then their truth is expressed in a way they don't feel understood, then they don't feel like they're being met in that truth,
Yes, yes.
right?
Exactly, exactly. That's a very important point is that you're right. When people don't have the tools on how to communicate that truth experience for them, it comes across, they miss, right? They miss because the other person doesn't recognize it's their experience. They start to defend their position, which is not what we're looking for. It's not about defending, it's about sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
in order for people to share, they have to tune. They have to tune into their own experience, which is very, when people don't have the tools, it's hard for them to do that. Once people start to learn how to tune, they tune in with their body language, with their
Mm-hmm.
facial expression, with their eyes, with their eye contact, with the
Mm-hmm.
words they say, with the tone of voice. All of that gives the signal, right? We are sending these emotional signals to each other. And I think we talked about the amygdala that is inside the brain basically serves like a radar.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions it asks, do you care about me? Do I matter to you? Are you there for me?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see my pain? Do you see my struggle? Will you be there when I call you? So all
Yeah,
of
so
this,
the three main questions, because I know you've talked about this a lot too, and I think it's interchangeably, I think someone said to us on the webinar, emotions are so personal, and it's so vulnerable for people to express the emotions in the workplace, particularly. So, how do we draw that line where we can still express our emotions and be vulnerable, but in a more professional way, like in a professional setting? And yeah, I think those questions like, are you there for me? Do I matter? Is
yeah.
that one? And then, will you be there? Do I matter? Are you there for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So basically, we have to have that sense that when I call, you will respond to me. So I think it's very important to for the manager when they try to resolve conflict between the team members to pay attention to that. What I do, it's interesting. Like when I deal with conflicts, I might validate one person, but I'm always giving reassurance to the other person. I might look at them or I
Mm-hmm.
might nod at them. I might
Yeah.
interrupt and say, I'll be right there with you. I promised you, we're going to get to your story as well. So I think this is very important for managers to learn how to do because then they can keep the balance. They
Mhm.
can come from one side, they can be with that person and hold that space and walk in their space with them while giving reassurance to the other. And then they can move to the other person and hold that space for them and go with them on their experience while reassuring the other. Because I think sometimes emotions are contagious, and when managers have to listen to these stories, they get off balance and they get overwhelmed. So it's very difficult for them to
Yeah.
pay attention to. But as they go through the process and they learn the emotional connection process, we see this over and over again. People become more competent in this
Mhm.
way, how to hold these two truths together. And it's actually fun to see them. Wow, we can actually have this difficult conversation and not get freaked out about it, right?
Mhm. Or
Not
also
lose
get
each
thrown
other.
off. I think a lot of conflicts that happen at work end up getting into the bedroom, or like that's what they say. If you have conflicts at work, a lot of times you end up going home with them and then they end up in your bedroom. Like you have a different experience with your significant other or your partner or your friends or your children because of how you feel emotionally safe or not in the workplace. So I think
Absolutely.
this is another great understanding is when you do have this tools of seeing like the both truths in the situation, it helps with easing the stress that comes with conflicts so that even if it's not necessarily resolved or you have like solutions or maybe you're still disconnected in some ways, you can still hold that space for each other and then be still able to continue your life outside of work. And then this is just to continuously remind those of you who are listening or watching that you spend most of your life, a lot of big, huge portion of your life at work. Why not learn the tools to help you connect in the workplace so you can thrive? And you will see the effects that these tools also have in your personal life.
Right. And I just want to share maybe this little metaphor is that the negative cycle, the negative pattern, sometimes when we get stuck in, if you don't know how to get out of it, you really feel you lose your self-confidence. You feel like you are digging in dirt. When
Mm,
you are stuck in conflict, it's like, but when you start using the process, what you start to recognize is you find these little gold nuggets
mm,
and you start to bring those gold nuggets out and you
mm,
start to see how people become more and more blossoming in their own gold nuggets that they find in themselves as they feel more and more connected with this positive cycle. So
mm,
I think emotional connection is growth. It's really helps people to create that environment where those gold nuggets can be polished, can be found, and can be continued to discover.
Well, maybe that's why I like this process so much, because I love gold.
We're like gold diggers. Gold.
Yeah, we're gold diggers. That's exactly
We are
right.
gold digging. With this process, we are digging gold.
Perfect. I love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I just want to again thank you so much for doing this podcast with me, Polina. I love it all the time. Every time we have this conversation, I don't want to get off. I don't want to end. But thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And we're so appreciating your love and care and dedication and commitment to learning something incredible.
So if you have any gold for us to dig, then you can contact us. For those of you who are listening or watching, which means if you have issues, conflicts, situations at work that you need support with, you can email us. Tell us what's going on with you, and we can talk about it here on the podcast. We can digest it. We can dig it out for you. You can polish your golden nuggets and get you empowered. That's what we want. We want you to feel safe enough to express your feelings so you get unstuck and then empowered to do the things that you need to do to create a successful work environment and a successful life. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is the Leader in You podcast. My name is Polina, and I'm here with Dr. Lola Gershfeld. Remember, we have a website, emcleaders.com, and the new assessment, team emotional safety assessment, which you can take on our website to see if you are in a emotionally safe workplace environment, if you feel emotionally safe. And of course, we have our training programs that are profound and very impactful to not only your workplace and your work experience, but also your personal life. Thank you again for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us at our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.